My name is Kelly Theriot. I'm 28 years old, and if you had asked me a year ago, I would have told you I had life figured out. I had a steady job, a home I worked hard to build, and a girlfriend I thought would be my forever. Her name was Rachel. We were together for 3 years, lived under the same roof for the last year and a half. On the surface, things looked solid, quiet dinners together, weekend movie nights, the occasional road trip. But now looking back, I can see all the cracks I chose to ignore. Rachel had a way of making love feel like a cage. If I didn't respond to her text within the hour, panic would set in. If I went out with my coworkers, she wanted screenshots, proof of who I was with. She'd frown whenever I mentioned an old friend, her jealousy flickering like a shadow in her eyes. At the time, I brushed it off as intensity. She loved me, maybe too much. But deep down, it was control. I told myself it was manageable, that every couple had their quirks. I was wrong. It was a cold night in February when she looked at me across the living room. She wasn't even really looking at me. Her eyes were locked on her phone, scrolling her thumb, hovering like the screen was the only thing that mattered. She said it casually, like she was announcing dinner plans. I think we should take a break. I remember staring at her, trying to understand the words. A break. My voice cracked, despite me trying to keep it calm. What's wrong, Rachel? She still didn't look up. I just need some space to figure things out. It's not you, it's me. The oldest, dustiest line in the book. But I wasn't stupid. Just a week earlier, she'd mentioned her ex, Marcus, had moved back to town. She had said it with a strange tone, like the words tasted bitter in her mouth. Oh, Marcus got a job here. Isn't that weird? Weird indeed. My chest tightened, but I didn't fight her. I didn't beg, didn't cry. Honestly, a part of me was tired of always walking on eggshells, tired of rationing my words to avoid sparking her insecurities. So I just said, okay. That one word seemed to cut deeper than any argument could have. She finally looked up from her phone, startled, almost offended. That's it. Just, okay. You said you need space, I replied, my voice steady. I'll give you space. Her lips parted like she wanted to argue, but she didn't. She moved out the following week, dragging half her wardrobe with her leaving boxes scattered in the hallway. She told me she'd come back for the rest when she was ready. She called it just a break. Sure. But here's the thing about breaks, they aren't suspended in time. Life doesn't stop and wait for you to decide. And more importantly, leases don't pause. We had signed a year-long lease together, both of our names inked, side by side, binding us financially for the next 8 months. That apartment wasn't just a roof, it was a contract one she couldn't just shrug off while she chased nostalgia with Marcus. The landlord wasn't some soft-hearted friend. He was a businessman. When I called him to ask about Rachel's break, he reminded me firmly. Both tenants are jointly and severally liable. I don't care who pays it, as long as it's paid in full. His words were cold, practical. A dose of reality Rachel hadn't considered. If she wanted off the lease, we both had to sign a termination agreement and pay a 2-month break fee. Otherwise, she was stuck with me, whether she liked it or not. I paid the full rent for the first month to protect my credit, but my patience wasn't charity. I mailed Rachel a certified letter attaching a highlighted copy of our lease. She owed half. It wasn't emotional, it wasn't vindictive, it was law. 2 weeks later, my phone buzzed with a notification I wished I hadn't seen. Rachel had posted a photo on Instagram, her and Marcus sitting at our favorite restaurant. The caption read, "Sometimes life brings people back together." My hands shook not out of heartbreak, but from the cold confirmation of what I had already suspected. She didn't need space. She needed Marcus. I screenshotted the post not to torture myself, but for the record. If she wanted to play dirty, I would play smart. That night, I sat in the apartment we once called ours, her half-empty closet, staring at me like a wound, and I promised myself something. If Rachel wanted a break, she would get more than she bargained for, because breaks have consequences. I wish I could say I felt sadness that I mourned what we had. The truth. It was bitterness that coursed through me, mixed with a strange clarity. Love should never feel like begging for scraps. As I folded laundry that still smelled faintly of her perfume, I found myself whispering, "This is the last time I clean up your mess, Rachel. I didn't know then just how much of a mess was coming my way, or how dangerous it would become." What started as a simple break was about to unravel into a storm of betrayal, legal battles, obsession, and threats. And I would learn painfully that sometimes the person you once loved can become the very one you need protection from. The silence stretched for weeks. No texts, no visits, just a hollow apartment that echoed every time I walked in. But the silence didn't mean Rachel was gone, not legally. At the start of the month, the rent came due again. I'd already paid it once on my own to keep my credit intact, but I wasn't about to bankroll her freedom while she played house with Marcus. So I drafted a letter, not a casual text, a formal certified letter that required her signature upon delivery. Inside, I included a photocopy of our lease yellow highlighter marking the key clause jointly and severally liable. She was as responsible as I was, whether she liked it or not. I slid the papers into the envelope and mailed them to her parents' house, her last known address. My hands didn't shake. My heart didn't race. Instead, I felt a calm resolve. For the first time, I wasn't reacting to her. I was standing on solid ground, backed by law, not emotion. 2 days later, my phone buzzed. It wasn't a reply to the letter. It was Instagram again. Rachel's smiling face popped up on my feed, her arm wrapped around Marcus's waist. They were at that restaurant, the one where she and I celebrated our anniversary the year before. The caption cut like glass. Sometimes life brings people back together. I stared at the screen for a long time, not because I was heartbroken, but because it confirmed what I already knew. The break wasn't about her needing space. It was about her running back to an old flame and hoping I'd sit quietly covering her bills while she played pretend. I took a screenshot and saved it. Evidence, not nostalgia. That night I texted her for the first time since she'd left. Me. Hey, I sent you a certified letter regarding the lease. Since you've moved out, you still owe your half of the rent. If you want to be formally removed from the lease, we both need to sign the termination paperwork with the landlord. Her reply came minutes later, sharp and dismissive. Rachel, can't this wait? I'm really busy. I stared at the message, exhaled slowly, and typed back. Me. The rent is due on the 1st. You are legally responsible for your share. Then silence. I didn't hear from her again until a week later when my phone lit up with an unknown number. Against my better judgment, I answered. Kelly, what the hell is wrong with you? Rachel's voice was high-pitched, already simmering with anger. I kept my tone level. I'm following the lease terms, Rachel. The ones we both signed. You know I can't afford this, she snapped. Then come sign the termination paperwork. Otherwise, the debt will go to collections, and it'll damage both of our credit scores. That's the reality. Her voice shook, teetering between fury and desperation. I can't believe you're being so cold about this. After everything we've been through. You wanted a break, I cut in sharply. Breaks have consequences. The line went dead. I set my phone on the counter and leaned against the kitchen island, my pulse steady. It was the first time I had ever spoken to Rachel without cushioning my words, without softening the blow to protect her feelings. And strangely, it felt good, liberating. But she wasn't done with me, not even close. 2 weeks later, the landlord called. Ms. Theriot, he said, his voice flat. The other tenant hasn't paid anything. I'll need full payment from you again this month. I clenched my jaw, forcing my voice to stay calm. I'll cover it for now. But I've already sent her a demand letter. If she doesn't comply, I'll be pursuing collections. The landlord grunted, clearly indifferent. Fine. Just keep records. That's what matters. Records. That became my lifeline. I kept screenshots of every unanswered message, every post Rachel uploaded of her and Marcus. I filed every receipt, every bank transfer, every certified letter. It wasn't just documentation, it was armor. Because I knew deep down this wasn't going to end with a simple signature. Then came the call I'd been half expecting, half dreading. Rachel's number lit up my screen again. I almost didn't answer. Almost. But curiosity got the better of me. You're unbelievable, she spat before I could even say hello, sending letters to my parents' house, harassing me. Do you enjoy humiliating me? I took a slow breath. I'm not humiliating you. I'm holding you accountable. There's a difference. You're supposed to love me, Kelly. Her voice cracked. But there was no vulnerability in it, only accusation. Now you're treating me like some stranger. I paused, my chest tightening despite myself. For a fleeting second, I remembered the girl I had once loved, the one who made me pancakes on Sundays, who laughed so hard at movies she cried. But that version of Rachel had disappeared the moment she chose Marcus over me. I don't know who you are anymore, I said quietly. But I do know one thing. I won't carry your responsibilities for you. The silence on the other end was deafening. Then came the slam of her hanging up. I stood there in my kitchen, the air heavy, and realized something important. I wasn't afraid of Rachel anymore. I was angry, yes. Betrayed, absolutely. But the fear, the constant tiptoeing around her emotions was gone. Still, I couldn't shake the gnawing in my gut. Because if there was one thing I knew about Rachel, it was that she didn't lose gracefully. And this was only the beginning. By the 3rd month, Rachel's absence had stopped feeling temporary. Her side of the closet stood half empty, gathering dust. Shoes still lined up like soldiers' winter coats slumping on hangers' boxes stacked in the corner. She hadn't come for them. She hadn't even asked. The lease was clear. Any property left behind for more than 30 days after vacating was considered abandoned. But the law required the landlord to send formal notice before disposing of anything. I coordinated with him, and he mailed the notice to her parents' house, giving her 15 days to collect her belongings. 15 days passed. Nothing. So I rolled up my sleeves, boxed up every shirt, every book, every piece of her I could find. At first it stung folding clothes that still carried the faint scent of her perfume, handling framed photos of us smiling, pretending. But with every item sealed inside cardboard, I felt lighter, like I was exorcising a ghost. I didn't keep her things. I didn't burn them either. I donated them to a women's shelter downtown. The volunteers there thanked me grateful and handed me an itemized receipt for tax purposes. That small slip of paper felt like poetic justice. Rachel's abandoned possessions would now help women who actually needed them. When she finally called, her voice shook with rage. "You gave my stuff away." "The lease gave you 30 days, I replied evenly. "The landlord sent you notice, you ignored it. You're cruel, Kelly. Heartless." I tightened my grip on the phone, forcing calm into my tone. "Your things are helping women who don't have the luxury of choices, Rachel. Consider it a gift you accidentally gave." The silence on the other end was sharp, furious. Then the line went dead. For a moment, guilt pricked at me. I had loved her once. But love, I reminded myself, doesn't excuse abandonment. She had walked out. She had left me to clean up the pieces. And now she was angry because I refused to keep holding on. It was around this time that I met Daniel. We crossed paths at a bookstore of all places, both reaching for the same novel on the shelf. He laughed, pulling his hand back. "Go ahead. You saw it first." I shook my head. "No, take it. I've read it before. Twice, actually." That small, ordinary exchange led to coffee. Coffee led to conversation. And conversation led to something I hadn't felt in years, ease. Daniel was a teacher, calm in a way that steadied me. He listened more than he spoke, and when he did speak, his words were measured, thoughtful. There were no mind games, no sudden explosions of jealousy, just quiet understanding. Our first dinner together, I confessed more than I meant to about Rachel, about Marcus, about the lease hanging over me like a storm cloud. He didn't judge. He didn't tell me what I should do. He just reached across the table, his hand covering mine, and said softly, "You don't deserve that kind of chaos. You deserve peace." Peace. The word landed in me like an echo I hadn't realized I was longing for. Of course, peace was exactly what Rachel couldn't allow me to have. It started small, a text late one night. "Rachel, hey, been thinking about us. I made a mistake. Can we talk?" I stared at the screen, the weight of those words pressing against the fragile new beginning I'd started with Daniel. I typed back short and final. "I'm seeing someone else now. I wish you the best." I thought that would end it. I was wrong. 20 minutes later, pounding rattled my front door. I froze, then peered through the peephole. Rachel stood there, hair disheveled, mascara streaked down her cheeks. Kelly opened the door. Her voice cracked, desperate. I slid the chain across and cracked it just enough to see her eyes. They were wild, unsteady. "It's 10 at night, Rachel," I said quietly. "Go home." "You can't just move on like that," she screamed. 3 years, Kelly. You don't just erase that." My chest tightened, but I forced my voice to stay calm. "It's been 6 months since you left. You ended it, remember?" I said a break, not a breakup. Her words tumbled out frantic. "I thought we could come back, Marcus. She broke off sobbing. "He lied to me. He left me. I made a mistake." I stared at her. The woman I once loved reduced to a trembling shadow of herself. Part of me wanted to comfort her, but then I remembered the bills. She ignored the belongings. She abandoned the photo with Marcus smiling like none of it mattered. "That's unfortunate," I said flatly, "but it has nothing to do with me. You need to leave." She pressed her hand against the door frame, tears streaming. "How can you be so cruel? I loved you." "My boyfriend is asleep upstairs," I lied, voice firm. "You're upsetting him. Leave now, Rachel, before I call the police." Her face twisted fury flashing through the tears. "You'll regret this," she spat, her voice low and venomous. Then she kicked the door hard before storming off into the night. I closed the door, locked it, and leaned against it, my heart hammering. For a long moment, I just stood there, listening to the silence return. But the silence didn't comfort me this time. It warned me. Rachel wasn't done, not by a long shot. After that night at my door, I hoped Rachel's fury had burned itself out. I was wrong. What began as a single outburst grew into a steady drumbeat of intrusion, each beat louder than the last. It started at the gym. I'd just finished my run when I spotted her across the room, leaning against the wall, pretending to scroll her phone. Our eyes met in the mirror. She smiled. Not warmly, not sadly, just a sharp curve of lips that told me she was enjoying my discomfort. I left without finishing my cool down. The next morning, she appeared at the coffee shop near my office. I stood in line, phone in hand, when her voice curled into my ear like smoke. Still taking it black. I turned. Rachel was there far too close, her smile brittle. "Don't do this," I muttered. She shrugged, tilting her head. Just being friendly. But her eyes glimmered with something darker. I started documenting everything. Times, places, dates. If she wanted to play shadow, I would gather proof. Then came the call that shifted everything. "Kelly, can you come to my office?" my boss asked, his tone unusually serious. I stepped inside, palms damp. He gestured to a chair and slid a piece of paper across the desk. An anonymous email. Concerned. Accusing. The words were twisted, venomous. "I'm worried about Kelly Theriot. She's unstable, manipulative, emotionally abusive. I fear for anyone working near her." My stomach dropped. "This isn't true," I said quickly, heat rising in my chest. My boss sighed. "I know, I've worked with you for years. But someone is targeting you, Kelly. You need to handle this." The weight of it hit me. This wasn't just a jealous ex lashing out. This was sabotage. Rachel wasn't trying to win me back anymore. She was trying to break me down piece by piece. That night, Daniel noticed my silence over dinner. "What happened?" he asked gently. I hesitated, then told him everything. The coffee shop, the gym, the email. His brow furrowed. "Kelly, this isn't just pettiness anymore. This is harassment." I looked down at my plate, appetite gone. I know. But part of me still feels guilty. Like maybe if I'd handled things differently. "Stop." His voice was firm, cutting through my spiral. "Her choices are hers. You don't control them. You don't cause them. You only control how you respond." I met his eyes, steady and unwavering. For the first time, I felt the depth of his steadiness anchoring me. The next escalation proved him right. Rachel didn't just follow me anymore. She began inserting herself into my life like a poison. At the bookstore where Daniel and I first met, she accidentally bumped into us, her gaze flicking between us with open disdain. At the grocery store, she trailed me down the aisles, adding commentary under her breath. "He won't last. You always run." Each encounter, I documented each incident, neatly time-stamped in a growing folder on my laptop. But no matter how much evidence I collected, fear grew inside me like a second heartbeat. It came to a breaking point one night when Daniel called me, his voice hushed. "She's outside." My blood ran cold. "What do you mean?" I looked out the window. There's a car parked across the street. It's her Kelly. She's just sitting there, watching. I grabbed my keys, heart pounding, and raced over. By the time I arrived, 2 police cars already lit the street with red and blue. Rachel stood on the sidewalk, arms crossed, telling officers she was lost and checking her GPS. But when I stepped out of my car, one officer recognized me. "Ms. Theriot. You filed a harassment report last month, right?" "Yes," I said, pointing at Rachel. "That's her, and she is lying. She has no reason to be here. This is my boyfriend's apartment." The officer's expression hardened. "We'll handle it." They questioned her, but without a protective order, served their hands were limited. Still, her presence there, at night, uninvited watching, was enough to document as stalking. As they guided her back into her car, Rachel's eyes locked on mine. She didn't shout this time. She didn't cry. She just stared, unblinking, as if etching my face into her memory. When she finally drove off, Daniel slipped an arm around my shoulders. His voice trembled despite his calm front. "She's dangerous, Kelly. This isn't going to stop until you stop it." Later that night, lying awake beside him, I stared at the ceiling, her eyes still burning into me. He was right. This wasn't heartbreak anymore. It wasn't about love lost or mistakes made. It was obsession, and obsession can destroy lives. The next morning, I made a decision. No more waiting, no more hoping she'd calm down. It was time to fight back with the law on my side. The morning after Rachel was caught outside Daniel's apartment, I sat across from a lawyer in a cramped office that smelled faintly of old paper and burnt coffee. She was sharp-eyed, efficient, the kind of woman who didn't waste words. "You've got a strong case," she said, flipping through the folder of screenshots, letters, and police reports I'd brought. "This isn't just harassment anymore, it's stalking. We'll file for an emergency protective order." The word stalking landed in my chest like a stone. I'd been avoiding it, softening it with words like persistence or obsession, but hearing it from her lips stripped away denial. Rachel wasn't just my ex anymore. She was a threat. 2 days later, a temporary protective order was granted. Papers would be served to Rachel within 48 hours. For the first time in months, I felt like I could breathe. But Rachel had a way of slipping through cracks. That very night, my phone rang from an unknown number. Against instinct, I answered. Kelly. The voice was low male, unfamiliar at first. Then it clicked. Marcus. What do you want? I asked, my pulse spiking. You need to drop this. His tone was casual, but beneath it hummed something dangerous. You don't know what you're dealing with. My grip on the phone tightened. Is that a threat? It's advice, he said smoothly. Rachel isn't well. You keep pushing her, it'll get uglier for you for your new boyfriend. Walk away before it's too late. My breath caught. Are you threatening Daniel? Just telling you to be smart, he muttered, then hung up. I stared at my phone, bile rising in my throat. That call wasn't about concern for Rachel. It was intimidation, a warning shot. I reported it immediately to the detective handling my case. He nodded grimly. Keep every record. This guy's protecting himself, not her. If he's involved, it'll come out. When the day of the hearing arrived, my stomach churned with dread. Courtrooms aren't built for closure. They're built for cold facts. Rachel showed up with a lawyer in tow, looking fragile, her hair pinned neatly, her eyes darting like a trapped bird's. Her lawyer tried to paint me as vindictive. Ms. Theriot is retaliating against my client after a failed relationship. This is nothing more than bitterness exaggerated into legal action. But my lawyer rose calmly, sliding evidence across the table. A timeline of texts, police reports, the photo of her parked outside Daniel's apartment. This isn't about bitterness, she said firmly. This is a documented pattern of stalking and harassment. My client has been followed. Her employment threatened, her safety compromised. The law exists for a reason. The judge barely looked at me during the proceedings. His focus was on the paperwork, the evidence, the dates. Cold, detached. Part of me hated that. Didn't he see the fear under my skin? The sleepless nights? Then he spoke. Miss Rachel, he said, voice firm. Your behavior is not that of a heartbroken ex-partner. It is that of a criminal harasser. The protective order is granted for 2 years. Rachel's face crumpled, tears spilling, but there was no relief in watching her break. No satisfaction. Only a hollow ache. Because the truth was, I remembered the woman. She used to be the one who brought me soup when I was sick, who kissed my forehead in the morning before work. Seeing her reduced to this shattered and seething felt like mourning a ghost. Outside the courtroom, Daniel took my hand. It's done, he said softly. But it didn't feel done. The order was just paper words stamped with authority. Paper can burn. Words can be ignored. For weeks, the silence afterward was heavy, fragile. Rachel disappeared from my daily life, yes, but I could feel her shadow lingering. I jumped when my phone buzzed, flinched when someone knocked at the door. Daniel noticed. You don't have to keep carrying her with you, he whispered one night. I wanted to believe him. I wanted to let the silence soothe me, but deep down I knew Rachel wasn't finished. She never walked away quietly. And then months later, I got the call that proved me right. My lawyer's voice was careful, deliberate. Rachel has requested a mediated meeting. She claims she has information relevant to Marcus that you deserve to know. She's also willing to sign a 5-year extension on the protective order in exchange for the meeting. I froze. Why would she do that? She says it's not for forgiveness, just explanation. Daniel was furious when I told him. It's a trap, Kelly. You owe her nothing. Don't give her more chances to twist you. He was right. But 5 years of guaranteed peace, it was tempting, and something inside me burned to know the truth. Rachel always played games. But what if for once this wasn't one? The meeting was set in a neutral conference room at my lawyer's office. The blinds were drawn, the table too long, the air too still. I sat at one end with Daniel beside me, his hand warm but tense against mine. Across from us, Rachel sat with her lawyer. She looked different, healthier. Her hair was neatly brushed, her face calmer. But her eyes, those restless eyes, still carried something fragile like glass that could shatter with one wrong word. Thank you for agreeing to this, she began softly. Her voice was steadier than I expected. I know I'm the last person you want to hear from. I'm not here to beg for forgiveness. I just need to tell you the truth. I folded my arms. The truth. Rachel inhaled slowly, her hands trembling slightly on the table. Marcus didn't just reappear in my life out of nowhere. He forced his way back. He had things from our past. intimate videos. He told me if I didn't leave you and get back with him, he'd send them to my family, my work post them online. I was terrified and ashamed. The air seemed to drain from the room. My stomach twisted. What? Her lawyer slid a document across the table. I glanced down. It was a copy of a police report filed 2 months earlier. Charges: blackmail, extortion. My name was even listed as a collateral victim. Rachel's voice cracked. I thought I could handle it. I thought if I gave him what he wanted, he'd get bored and stop. That's why I posted those photos, the smiling captions. They weren't real. They were required. I shook my head, struggling to process. So you're telling me you left me, not because you wanted to, but because Marcus blackmailed you? Tears welled in her eyes. Yes. And when it all fell apart, when he dumped me anyway, I lost everything. I had a breakdown. And instead of facing that, I turned it on you. On Daniel. On anyone who reminded me of what I'd lost. That was inexcusable. I know that. I was a victim, but I made victims out of you both. I'll carry that guilt forever. Daniel's jaw tightened. He spoke for the first time, his voice low. You nearly destroyed her. You tried to destroy me. That doesn't vanish just because you say you were pressured. Rachel nodded, her shoulders shaking. I know. That's why I'm not asking you to forgive me. I asked for this meeting, so you'd hear it from me, not rumors, not court filings. The truth. You didn't deserve to be left with a lie. Her lawyer cleared his throat. As agreed, my client will sign a 5-year extension on the protective order. She has also prepared written apologies to Ms. Theriot and Mr. Daniel. We will only deliver them if they consent. Silence stretched between us. I stared at Rachel, my mind split down the middle. One part of me burned with fury. This explanation didn't erase the nights of fear, the humiliation at work, the way she stalked me. But another part saw her differently. Not just as the monster who haunted me, but as someone broken, manipulated, blackmailed into self-destruction. Why should I believe you? I asked, finally, my voice sharper than I intended. Rachel looked at me, then really looked, not with the wildness I'd come to know, but with something quieter. Because I filed the report. Because I'm testifying against him. Because I can't undo what I did to you, but I can stop him from doing it to anyone else. Her lawyer slid the signed extension forward. 5 years of protection. My lawyer checked it, nodded, then handed it to me. I didn't pick it up, not yet. Daniel's hand squeezed mine. Kelly, he murmured, you don't owe her your sympathy. Take the deal and walk away. But my eyes stayed locked on Rachel. She was crying now. Silent tears streaking her cheeks. Her hands clenched in her lap. I'm sorry, she whispered. Not for me, for you, for all of it. I closed my eyes. Her voice carried echoes of the woman I had once loved, the one I thought I'd spend forever with, but forever had twisted into something dangerous, something I could never let back into my life. I opened my eyes steady. I'll accept the extension. I'll accept the letters, but that's the end. You stay away from me, from Daniel, from anything connected to us. This is your last chance to do the right thing. Rachel nodded, broken but resolute. When the meeting ended, I walked out into the sunlight with Daniel. It felt blinding after the dim room, almost too bright. Well, he asked. I let out a long breath I hadn't realized I'd been holding. I don't know how to feel. Part of me wants to believe her. Part of me hates her even more for making excuses. Either way, it doesn't change what she did. Daniel's eyes softened. Sympathy doesn't erase scars. You can understand her pain without letting her back in. I knotted my throat tight. For the first time in months, I felt something close to closure, not perfect, not clean, but enough to start breathing again. But in the back of my mind, one thought lingered. Was Rachel telling me the whole truth, or just the part that made her look less like the villain? 2 months after that mediated meeting, I got the call I didn't know I'd been waiting for. Marcus had been arrested. Not here, but in another state on charges of blackmail and extortion. As it turned out, Rachel wasn't his only victim. There were at least 4 other women, each with the same story. Private videos, threats, coercion, a trail of manipulation stretching back years. When my lawyer called to update me, she sounded almost relieved. He's finally facing the consequences, she said. Rachel testified against him. The case is strong. I sat in silence, the news washing over me. Marcus, the man who had haunted my life without ever really being in it, was finally caged by his own crimes. But there was no triumph in it, only a strange hollowness. Weeks later, the letters arrived. Apology letters from Rachel sent through her lawyer as promised. I held the envelope for a long time before opening it, my hands trembling slightly. Her handwriting was the same, looped, deliberate, but the words were raw in a way I hadn't expected. Kelly, I don't ask for forgiveness. I don't deserve it. What I did to you and Daniel was inexcusable. My pain doesn't erase yours. My fear doesn't excuse my cruelty. I hope one day you'll see that I am not the same woman who stalked you, harassed you, tried to tear you down. I am someone in recovery fighting to rebuild. I wish you peace, the kind I never gave you. Rachel. I folded the letter back into the envelope, my chest heavy. Daniel read his in silence, then set it aside. I'm glad she's getting help, he said carefully. But forgiveness isn't required. What matters is that she stays gone. And she did. The 5-year protective order was in place. The police report against Marcus ensured Rachel remained focused on her own healing, not on me. For the first time in a year, my life grew quiet again. Daniel and I moved in together into a new apartment untouched by old ghosts. We painted the walls ourselves, laughter echoing through the empty rooms as we argued over colors and spilled paint on the floor. It wasn't perfect, but it was ours. One evening, as I carried groceries inside, I froze. In the produce aisle at the store, I'd seen her. Not Rachel, her mother. She spotted me too, hesitated, then approached slowly like someone crossing a minefield. Kelly, she said softly, I won't keep you. I just wanted to say, what happened, as terrible as it was, might have been for the best. The arrest, the order, it forced Rachel to hit rock bottom, and she's finally getting the help she should have had years ago. Her therapist says she's making progress. I swallowed hard, unsure what to say. Her mother's smile was thin, strained. Thank you for standing your ground, for forcing consequences. It saved her in a way. I nodded, my throat tight. I'm glad she's doing better. She gave me a small, sad smile, then walked away. I stood there for a moment, staring at the tiled floor, and realized something. Closure doesn't come in grand gestures. It comes in fragments. A courtroom order, an apology letter, a mother's hesitant gratitude. Later that night, curled up beside Daniel in our new living room, I let myself breathe. Really breathe. Here's what I've learned. Red flags are not quirks. They're warnings. When someone's love feels like control, like constant jealousy or anxiety, that curdles into accusations that isn't passion. It's instability. And instability left unchecked becomes dangerous. Taking a break isn't a declaration to be made over text. If someone won't give you real reasons, their silence is the reason. And most importantly, document everything. Not because you're petty, but because you're protecting yourself. The law can only work with evidence, not emotions. I learned that mental illness can explain behavior, but it doesn't excuse it. Rachel was both victim and perpetrator, and I wasn't obligated to absorb her trauma or forgive her abuse. Forgiveness isn't required for closure. Closure comes with time, with distance, with building something new on ground that's finally stable. Rachel's protective order will last 5 years. Marcus will likely spend longer than that in prison. And me, I'm still standing. Scarred, yes, but also stronger. As I finish telling this, I realize it's not a happy ending or a sad one. It's something messier.